All right, how are we doing? Thank you for joining the video. I've got a fun one for you today. This is a case study of someone that is coming into weightlifting. So they are a beginner weightlifter, but they have a lot of strength training history. So this is Greg. He's done a lot of sort of strength training, a lot of powerlifting style training. So he squats 200 plus kilos. His deadlift is 250 plus kilos. Very, very strong guy. And both of those, I think, are for reps from what I remember. Really strong overhead press, really strong bench. So this guy's a phenomenally strong athlete. But when he came to me, his weightlifting work needed a lot of technical work, and he had some severe mobility limitations, which I think he would definitely admit for sure. He worked really diligently on that. So I want to give you an example of what some issues typically look like for people that come to weightlifting that are very, very strong, but haven't really had the chance to sort of explore and be exposed to how the technique's supposed to look. And I'm going to show you some of the stuff that we did to address that. I'll talk you through that and maybe show sort of where we got to at the end. So what I want to start with, if we look at these first lifts, you can see him doing some cleans. The biggest thing you can see is that he's really reliant on his muscle because he's jacked out of his mind and super, super strong. He can just muscle these weights up, but there's very little use of hip extension. He's not pulling under the bar at all. Essentially, he's just using his arms and flinging the bar up in a reverse curl, which he can do with 60 kilos for reps because he's phenomenally strong. I can't do that for sure. So it's impressive in of itself, but we need to address that to get him lifting more, to get him lifting closer to his potential. Some of the work that we do, let me have a look. I'm going to see if I can find, I'm trying to choose through these videos. Some of the first lifts we get him doing, did a lot of power cleans, just working on moving the feet. And as you can see, there's some jump forward, absolutely. And we're adding in. Actually, this is near the end of his training with me, and you'll see why in a minute. But we did get him doing various power cleans and various movements to encourage him to move his feet and not just rely on his arms sort of coming through. He wanted to rely on making sure that he moved the feet and let the legs do the work. So we did a few drills, sort of like power cleans aimed at that. I'll see if I can find some more relevant examples. Now, when I mentioned the front squat, I mentioned it because I'm going to see if I can find the first video of Greg attempting front squats. Here we go. So when we said about mobility limitations, that's how I knew that video was from later. When we started, we couldn't clean it all. You can see he's having some real wrist pain attempting this. He barely gets into a quarter squat with a front rack kind of position, and his heels are coming off the floor. His balance is drifting forwards. It's hurting his wrists. No way that he can actually clean there. So massive, massive pain. We had to do some very specific work. This is just one example of some of the stretching we did. Probably 4 times a week, he did very specific mobility work for thoracic extension, shoulder mobility. We tried to loosen his lats out a lot. We loosened his chest a lot. We had to do a lot of different stuff. We did slow eccentric shoulder presses, really like coming back down into the rack position. We also did, I'm going to see if I can find him for you here. We did front squats with straps. That's what he's doing here, where he has the strap set just above the bar so he can get something close to a front rack position. And gradually over many, many weeks, we lowered his grip on the strap until he could properly front squat without them. So that's one of the things we worked on doing to improve his mobility. And then if we head over to, for a little bit of context, then if we head over to your power clean, we did a power clean plus a front squat. So you can see his power clean, where we're trying to emphasize getting him to move his legs, not just rely on his arms. Then we followed that with a front squat, which he can actually do now. And then we added in the split jerk, which is still a work in progress, but is not a bad position. If we actually pause in that split jerk, I think he does a lot well. His front shin is basically vertical. His back knee has got close to a 120 degree bend. Torso is upright. That's a pretty decent lift, if I dare say so myself, from someone that could not do even a quarter front squat without severe wrist pain a few months back. That's a crazy, crazy improvement. We can also see his snatch. I'm going to see if I can find a snatch towards the start of his time. Let me have a little look-see. So we did some snatches. Snatch improved pretty quickly, actually. He was keeping the bar close. A little bit of jump, a little bit of move forward. But we a few little drills, we got his snatch improving quite quickly. And then that ended up somewhere at around 70 kilos where we did some work. One of the things we got to at this point, his pull was decent. He was getting underneath the bar. His balance was better. At this point, We stuck around 70 because you can just see we wanted to work on making sure he had a really strict lockout. You can see just here, his elbows are a little bent. Now, whether he'd get called for a press out on that, I don't know, because he actually catches with bent elbows and sort of keeps them bent, so he'd probably be fine in a competition. But it's not something I love to see, and it is something I see a lot coming from people that have came from powerlifting and from strongman especially, because you get really used to pushing the weight out, but sort of like soft arms or soft elbows. Actually holding a really strict lockout in the press is really important. For weightlifting especially. So that's something we paused at this point to work on. We did a lot of snatch grip push presses and snatch grip presses to really reinforce a strict lockout. So I think that just gives you a general sense of what we've done. I know those videos are a bit all over the place, but hopefully that gives you a general sense of some of the stuff that we did. So we specifically addressed his mobility. We worked on making sure that he wasn't just relying on his arms, that he was actually getting that extension through his hips, making sure that he was using the power in his legs. We made sure that he wasn't just catching on soft elbows. We made sure that he had that kind of like that stronger lockout. So we worked on a lot of different pieces of the puzzle to improve, but to end on, you know, sort of 70 kilos on the snatch. And I think, I don't have a video of it, but we ended on about 85, 90 kilos on the clean and jerk, which is a decent amount to be winding up on. I think there's still plenty more progress in the tank, plenty left for him to do. But this is a really good example of someone that sort of left their ego at the door a little bit, was willing to dial it back and just work on that technique. I also hope it shows as an example that when you are incredibly strong, you don't need to practice just with an empty bar indefinitely. You can have some weight on the bar, whether that be 40, 50, 60, 70 kilos, and still do good, solid technical work. If you're squatting and deadlifting plus 200 kilos, chances are that work just with an empty bar isn't going to do a whole bunch for you beyond the first couple of weeks of getting the movements in. So just something to bear in mind. Anyway, I'm rattling on. Hopefully that's a useful case study example just to give you a little bit of an idea what working with him might look like, some of the drills, some of the individualized approaches we take to different lifters. Hopefully that just explains a few things for you. All right, there's plenty of other videos on the page. Feel free to check them all out, and I'll catch you in the next one. All right, see you there.